You're listening to the Forging Bio podcast, a show that illuminates invention, not in some distant laboratory, but in the very fabric of our everyday lives. We're sitting down with innovators in biotechnology and biomanufacturing to talk about how microbes and molecules are making the future of industry. We'll hear incredible stories of inspiration, revolutionary ideas, and approaches to creating ingredients for food, beverage, nutrition, pharmaceuticals, beauty, agriculture, materials, and more, all shaping the future of health, wellness, and prosperity. What if your body had a built-in defense system, one that quietly shielded your cells from the inside out? Now imagine that system slowly fading over time without you even noticing. I'm your host, Casey Lippmeier, and today we're diving into the science of a powerful, lesser-known molecule that could transform the way we think about longevity and healthy aging. It's called ergothioneine, and it might just hold the key to protecting your health span. Joining me is Dr. May-Zhang, Vice President of Science and Innovation for Blue California. She's going to unpack the research and explore how this unique nutrient could reshape the future of healthy aging. So with that said, Linda, let's dive right in. How are you today?
I'm great, Casey. Thanks for inviting me on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
So I've heard ergothioneine described as a longevity vitamin, and I want to definitely unpack that part of it. When people think of longevity, they often think about just living longer. How do you think the conversation around health span is changing today?
Yes, the conversation has changed dramatically over the past couple of years. From living longer, so adding years of life, to health span, which is basically regardless of the number of years lived, you want to be as healthy for as long as possible. So I actually have an interesting story about health span, but I want to ask you a question first, if you don't mind.
I don't at all. Please, fire away.
This is a very easy question. Casey, can you do a 3-minute plank?
Oh, gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I know what a plank is. My wife in a former incarnation was a personal trainer, and she had me do them all the time.
Okay.
So I know that I used to be able to do one, but it's been a number of years.
Yeah, you hold the core, you know,
right.
And then...
I think I can do one. I'm almost certain I can.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Thank
you're
you.
in good shape, because it's actually pretty hard to do a 3-minute plank.
I'll take your word for it. Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay, follow-up question.
Yes.
Can you do a 3-minute plank in 30 years?
Oh, from now?
From now.
Yeah, I doubt that. Probably not.
That's a goal for us.
Okay.
For achieving health span.
Okay.
And the reason why I asked this is because I was very impressed by some news recently of two women.
Two women.
One was a 100-year-old woman who was able to do a 3-minute plank.
That's impressive.
She was 100 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
And, depending on the news story, she could either do a 3-minute plank, a 5-minute plank, or an 8-minute plank. I think she could do an 8-minute plank, but she was on news doing a 3-minute plank.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, wow, I want to try to achieve 100 years old and be able to even remotely get close to that.
Sure. Yeah. I think that actually we should test this, like right after this podcast.
I know, we should do that.
I'm going to do a 3-minute plank. Yeah.
We should do a 3-minute plank competition.
Absolutely.
To test
how
good we are right now.
Know. Yeah, exactly.
A couple days later, there was another woman who was 95 years old who could do a deadlift. She broke a world record for deadlifting.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And she was so cute because on the interview that I watched, she was like, well, this is very easy for my age because there's no one else who could do it at my age. And she was so cute.
It's a wonderful perspective to have. It also shows her humility, of course, right?
Of course.
Yeah. She's framing her own remarkable, I would say, health span. That distinguishes her from everyone else. It's very impressive. I agree. It's very
Absolutely.
impressive. So are you going to be this kind of individual in 30 years? I mean, is there some...
I am striving.
Okay.
I am striving. I just want to make it to 85.
Sure. As we all do.
And I want to make sure I'm physically, independent. Not,
right.
I'm not looking to do 3-minute planks and deadlifting.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, those two women totally embody both the longevity aspect and health span.
Right.
And that's where the conversation is shifting. We're shifting away from, okay, how long do I want to live? Do I want to live up to 85, 95, or 100? But shifting to, okay, do I want to be healthy at that time? Even if I'm 85, do I want to be cognitive healthy, physically independent, et cetera? So the conversation is now shifting from, okay, I want to achieve to 100 years old to I want to be as healthy and strong as possible to that long.
Right.
And this conversation is not just a personal conversation. It's expanded globally. It's not even, I would say, a conversation anymore. It's more of an executional phase right now. Right now, I'm very excited to witness, the growth of longevity science, because we have just the birth and funding of all these aging institutes around the world. We have things like the Hevolution X Prize contest that's going on right now. I believe there's over 100 teams developing therapeutics for healthy aging and anti-aging technologies.
Okay.
And we are now seeing longevity clinics around the world helping patients achieve Healthspan. So it's a very interesting time right now. And the reason for this is because we've achieved great strides for lifespan compared to 40, 50 years ago. We're living longer than ever before.
Modern medicine has done tremendous things.
Yes, exactly. Modern medicine has achieved the lifespan aspect. People are now living longer than before. I think the average life expectancy is around 80 years old or more, depending on the country, but not necessarily the health span aspect.
Right.
In the United States, we are seeing over 60% of American adults having at least one chronic disease, and 40% ages 65 and older are having 2 or more chronic diseases. That means diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases, heart disease. So we might be achieving the lifespan aspect, but we're not necessarily being healthy.
Right.
So the conversation has now shifted to the health span. Can we achieve that long health for as long as possible?
Right. And I think it's, again, a very important thing to think about because, if you're not in old age living healthy, you're also a burden on the rest of the economic system and everything else. Right. And when I say, the advances of modern medicine, I'm also talking about nutrition as well, too. And, this includes that in it. But as you were talking and getting back to what we were saying earlier, I was wondering, in 30 years, what's your longevity anecdote going to be? Or maybe you already have one. I don't know. Do you have
I do.
Okay.
And it's recent, I admit. Even though I've been in, I am a scientist. I've been studying human disease for the past 15 years. I've only practically adopted what's called a longevity lifestyle in the past couple of years. Longevity is very personal to me. Longevity does not run in my family, unfortunately. I've lost 2 grandparents before I was born. They were in their 50s, one on both sides.
Wow, okay. That's young.
Yeah, that's very young. And so that has always been in the back of my mind. The other 2 grandparents on each side, they lived actually pretty decently up to the age of 80. So that, that is the average lifespan. But I will say that the past 10 years preceding to their passing was not good quality of life.
Right.
From age 70 to 80 years old, they were frail. They were not really cognitively with it. And they did not have a good quality of life, which is unfortunate. So I will say that, the longevity part, we all think we're immortal until a certain age. And for me personally, that was, when I first realized, hey, I'm not going to be continually young. Right. Was when I first gave birth to my kids.
Yeah.
So I have
That's an existential moment for most parents.
It is, right?
Yes.
For most parents.
Yeah.
I have 2 young boys. They're 3 and 7 years old. And I had them in my mid and late 30s. I'm in my 40s now. And I'm happy to say that my parents and in-laws are very healthy. Good. So despite my grandparents, they're very healthy right now, and they could be with them, taking care and enjoying the grandchildren. And I admit that even now, I'm already thinking about the future. Oh. In terms of, okay, if I become a grandparent, if my kids make that choice, how old will I be? I will be probably, if they're on the same trajectory, 70. Right. And I want to be there for that,
Yeah. I also want to be a present grandparent for my daughter. I'm running through the same sorts of things myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, I am getting older. I'm like 53 now, right? And I I can feel sort of, pains and aches where I didn't used to have them anymore. And, I feel like it's kind of creeping up on us all, right?
Yes,
like
it just happens,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
for a while, you're just coasting in life.
Right.
And then one day you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm just picking up a book.
Right.
And suddenly I throw my back. Like,
I've never done that. Yeah.
oh my gosh.
I mean, I hope the sarcasm was detected there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a silent thing.
Right.
And, for some people, it happens more subtly or less subtly. Like recently, Warren Buffett stepped down
Yep.
from his managing the
Yep.
Berkshire.
Yep.
And there was a viral quote on LinkedIn that I saw, alleged quote from him. And he was like, I'm stepping down because I realize I'm aging. And I didn't realize I was aging until I hit 90.
Right.
So he's another story of health span and lifespan.
Right. I think
And so
everyone
it hit
regards him as
him.
still being a pretty sharp guy, a pretty capable guy.
He's
but
another aspiration.
Yeah.
It's the two ladies and then him.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. For me, I'm like, it already hit me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I need to take better care of myself.
Well, I mean, since our relationship with Blue California has prospered into, this ergothioneine technology, I mean, I take it every day now, and I do think it's helping. But I'd like for you to explain a little bit about why it might be doing that. I mean, you mentioned about how the aging process is kind of silent, and I think everyone recognizes
Yes.
that. But what's really happening behind the scenes there? Like, what makes aging happen silently? I guess.
An analogy is like a foundation of a house. So you have a new build, and then over time, or any material item that you own, over time it gets older. You have cracks forming in the foundation. The cracks get bigger, the roof gets, older. And if you don't take care of the house, it's going to cause structural damages. So this is an analogy for the oxidative stress theory of aging. So there's oxidative stress, that's damage from free radical production.
Right.
And that damages your DNA, your protein, lipids, mitochondria. And over time, if that becomes unchecked, you're going to have, aging starts. Aging is always happening.
Of course.
And aging can be accelerated if those processes that damage the structural proteins and DNA of your body gets unchecked.
Right.
And so when we're younger, we have repair processes that can fix everything. You can
Right.
fix your DNA damage, for example. But as we get older, those repair processes actually get damaged as well. And so if those get left unchecked, which means if you have poor lifestyle habits, if you have poor nutrition, if you have poor external factors, if you don't take care of your body, aging accelerates.
Right.
And all these processes happen silently. You don't feel them until one day you notice.
Right.
What happens on the inside happens also on the outside. You look in the mirror and you start to see, things aging. You start to see age-related damage, et cetera. You start to feel things and, you start to see or feel signs of aging. So it's very important to even though it's silently, take care of your body.
It's all about oxidation, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I guess for me, an analogy is, a rusty car by the beach, absorbing all that
That's
salt.
a lot of environmental damage, right?
Yeah.
You got the sun rays.
Yeah, all those
You
things.
don't have the paint protection.
Exactly. Yeah. All those things cause the rust, the oxidation, right?
Yes.
But, a car that's, out in, I don't know, Oklahoma somewhere and, mostly dry weather isn't going to suffer from that same kind of problem, right?
Yes,
Maybe it's in a
yes.
garage. It's just better protected. Right.
Exactly.
So you're saying maybe ergothioneine, being an antioxidant, can help mitigate a lot of those oxidative damages. I mean, there's other antioxidants as well, too, and maybe we'll talk more about those. But let me pull it back to ergothioneine, right? What exactly is ergothioneine?
Ergothioneine is very interesting. It's a nutrient that is completely underappreciated by the general public.
I agree.
You and I know it. We take supplements for it because we know it, but the general population does not know of it yet.
Right.
It's a nutrient found in mostly mushrooms. It's known as a longevity vitamin because it's theorized that it's very important or even essential for maintaining a healthy life.
Right.
So it's a longevity vitamin. It's a very unique antioxidant that gets into just multiple parts of the human body because we express a transporter that allows ergothioneine to get in. And ergothioneine, once it get inside the human cells, It's an antioxidant. It scavenges free radicals. It combats oxidative stress. It also does other things. It's anti-inflammatory. It can activate endogenous antioxidant pathways. And in preclinical studies, animal models and cell models, we're seeing actually a lifespan extension effect. And we're actually, right now, we're seeing a lot of literature linking to ergothioneine intake and a better life, better quality of life, extended health span and lifespan. So it's a very interesting ingredient that I could only find in the diet.
Right. That's very interesting. I have a little factoid to add to this, and that is that while, as you were right, I don't think it's extremely well known in most of the world, it actually is very well known in Japan.
Yes.
I was actually there just a couple weeks ago, and everyone I talked to was immediately aware of what I was talking about.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, Japan is kind of famous for having a high population of healthy older people with long lifespans.
Yes.
And I strongly wonder if there's a correlation there between the awareness and perhaps the increased intake of ergothioneine and just Japanese longevity.
That is true. The lifespan of the average Japanese is much longer than Americans. But they are also, because of the increased lifespan aspect, there is a larger aging population in Japan.
Right.
So they're very, very keen
Tuned
and
into longevity.
Tuned into longevity and health span.
And is there something special about, their diet? I mean, the Japanese cuisine, it's delicious. I love it. But I mean, is there...
I love Asian cuisine.
I mean, are they eating any foods that are maybe richer in ergothioneine than...
I was going to say, for they tend to eat more mushrooms.
Okay.
So mushrooms is enriched with ergothioneine. Ergothioneine, I will say, it's found in all different types of foods. People who do know of ergothioneine think of mushrooms.
Right.
But ergothioneine can be found in oatmeal, in wheat, in even meats, in tofu, for example, because ergothioneine, I will say, it's made, where does ergothioneine come from in nature? It's made by bacteria and fungi. And so you could find ergothioneine from soil bacteria. And so agriculture takes up ergothioneine from soil, and that's why you could find ergothioneine in the food supply.
Right.
Mushrooms are the fruiting bodies of fungi, so they naturally make ergothioneine. But Japanese and a lot of Asians tend to have higher intake of mushrooms.
Okay.
That's why maybe potentially they live longer,
So there's a correlation
or
there.
look younger.
Yeah.
At least I'm told. But there was a study.
You definitely do look younger than the age that I know that you are, which I will not mention on this podcast, but go ahead. Yes.
There was a study led by Professor Emeritus Bob Bielman that looked at estimated ergothioneine exposure. So basically estimating from the diet how much ergothioneine one would take. And he looked at it per country.
Okay.
And he plotted basically country estimated ergothioneine intake and risk for neurodegenerative diseases or mortality associated with neurodegenerative diseases or just general mortality. And so you could just see this plot. And he found that Japan was, first of all, their dietary exposure of ergothioneine just blew it out of the water
highest
compared
in the world,
to, yes, highest in the world compared to Americans.
Okay.
And they were lowest in terms of mortality risk for neurodegeneration compared to Americans, which was actually the lowest.
Right.
Because
Maybe
Americans,
not surprising.
Unfortunately, do not tend, anecdotally, my friends do not tend to eat mushrooms on a daily basis.
Yeah. My wife would tell you that I generally don't prefer them. I'll eat almost anything, but I've always, throughout my life, I've kind of avoided mushrooms. I try to be much better about eating them now. That's a thing of the past, but... But, from my childhood pickiness, that's one of the ones that kind of
maybe
was a holdover.
Maybe it's the way we cook it,
Maybe.
It's raw,
That's right.
You find the button mushrooms and it's on salads and
that's right.
Pizza maybe.
I heard that, what is it? I think it's the King Bullet is the one that has the most ergothioneine in it.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
So American cuisine, we're used to the button mushrooms. Right. There's on the, in the grocery, there's the brown and white button mushrooms, and then maybe there's portobello mushrooms, and that's it.
Right.
You have to go to an Asian market to find oyster mushrooms and the other ones. And the porcini, the oyster mushrooms, they're more abundant in ergothioneine. So for a 3-ounce serving, you could get, for example, 6 to 10 milligrams of ergothioneine for those type of mushroom species. Shiitake, maitake, oyster mushrooms. There's the Japanese yellow oyster mushrooms.
Right.
And then the white button mushrooms are on the other end of the spectrum.
I see.
It's 1 to 2 or even
So they're
at
even
most
low.
3
Okay.
milligrams. It's lower.
But regardless, I mean, it sounds like ergothioneine is fairly ubiquitous in our diets because it's not just mushrooms, as you said. It's like meats and leafy greens and bacteria. Mm-hmm. So why is it important to actually increase the intake when you get older? What's happening in our bodies that makes that important?
Yeah, that's a good question. So ergothioneine, it's so interesting because you could only get it in your diet, but our bodies express a transporter specifically for ergothioneine to get it in.
Right, you mentioned that, yeah.
Yes. And it's important because, there's right now at this moment in 2025, there has now been over a dozen association studies on 2 things. One is mushroom consumption and risk for all sorts of things, risk for neurodegeneration, age-related disease, mortality. And there consistently has been an association between higher mushroom consumption and lower risk for mortality, neurodegeneration, et cetera.
Diseases of aging.
Diseases of aging.
Right.
Mushrooms contain a lot of things besides ergothioneine. It's enriched with ergothioneine, but also contains selenium, glutathione, fiber, et cetera. And so there's also now been dozens of association studies looking at plasma or blood ergothioneine, so exactly ergothioneine in a person, and risk for age-related diseases.
One step away from just associating with mushroom consumption. Now the actual serum levels.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And there is a very strong association. There's metabolomic studies now looking at just disease, not only mortality, but longevity. And ergothioneine has consistently been one of the top metabolites to be associated with longer lifespan and increased longevity.
Right.
So what is happening? The question is, okay, now there's a lot of association studies. Now ergothioneine was discovered in 1900s. The ergothioneine transporter was discovered only 20 years ago. That really led to a birth of all these research studies to look at, okay, what's the importance of this in terms of the biological context in the human body. We found that ergothioneine extends lifespan in animals and simpler models. We found that there's all sorts of associations between getting more ergothioneine in the diet and warning off, human diseases. Now it's like, okay, what is ergothioneine doing in the human body for aging? And I think it relates to the fact that we have this really interesting transporter. I keep talking about this transporter because it's really interesting.
Yep.
We express this ergothioneine transporter for a nutrient I could only get in mushrooms, which is really
other things too, not just mushrooms, but
not mushrooms in the food.
Yeah, right.
The human body does not make it.
Right.
And this transporter is expressed in over 100 different cell types. It's expressed in the small intestine, red blood cells, kidney, eyes, different types of brain cells, et cetera. And ergothioneine is a water-soluble amino acid.
The fact that there's a dedicated transporter for ergothioneine, I think, is really fascinating. Just something that I know about vitamins in general, and particularly letter vitamins, is that there's essentially 3 criteria they have to meet in order to be a letter vitamin, right? One of them is that you can't make it in your own body. You can't be able to make it, naturally, I guess. And so ergothioneine hits that. We have to get it from our diet, right? Just like vitamin C, right? I mean, that's my understanding. So number 2 is there has to be some biochemical reaction that can't proceed without the presence of that nutrient, right? And so you already talked about how ergothioneine is preferentially accumulated in the mitochondria and helps prevent oxidative damage there. So that I think hits number 2. But maybe number 3 is the one that's missing here. I think the third criteria has to be that there has to be a defined disease that is caused by the deficiency of that, right? So with vitamin C, that's scurvy. With vitamin
Yes.
D, that's rickets. I don't think there's any deficiency state with ergothioneine that's
Yes, not that we know of right
Okay.
now. So the complication, I would say, the reason why ergothioneine is not yet classified as an official vitamin,
yep.
letter vitamin, essential vitamin, it's a putative longevity vitamin classified by the late Bruce Ames.
Okay.
But the reason is, so the essential alphabet vitamins, they're classified as essential vitamins because without it in the diet, there is an acute deficiency syndrome or disease. So those acute syndromes, symptoms, diseases manifest within weeks, months, or even 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
So like you mentioned, the rickets, the scurvy, or even just other, very palpable, you could feel the symptoms that manifest in a relatively short term.
Right.
With longevity vitamins, the reason why there is a separate classification, there's 2 classifications, essential vitamins and longevity vitamins. And there is a whole category. Some of the essential vitamins can be also longevity vitamins, like vitamin D, like magnesium, for example, is that, okay, in the long term, in terms of age-related diseases, like cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, or just general age-related diseases, it takes a lifespan to manifest in those diseases. So it might take years, decades to manifest.
I see. Or at least that's the
diseases.
hypothesis.
That's a hypothesis, at least.
Right.
So ergothioneine falls into the longevity vitamin category. So there is not known right now people with complete ergothioneine deficiency, possibly because the field is relatively new, possibly because ergothioneine is found in different food sources. So you do get minor amounts,
Right.
whether a person knows it or not.
Right.
But it takes years to know, okay,
Do our serum levels of ergothioneine change over our lifespan?
it does. So that's where it comes in. So
Regardless of how much you're actually eating, you mean?
Regardless.
I see.
And it might be downregulation of this ergothioneine transporter. It could be other physiological processes.
Okay.
But over time, ergothioneine levels decrease with age.
Oh, I see.
Mainly starting at the age of 50 to 60. But, that's based on a couple of studies.
I see. So I've also heard the hypothesis that perhaps some of the diseases of old aging are either caused or exacerbated by the lack of an ability to absorb nutrients from your diet in old age. So perhaps ergothioneine, the declining levels of ergothioneine in old age, perhaps that's part of the hypothesis that maybe it contributes to.
So studies to demonstrate, to definitively prove that ergothioneine is indeed a longevity vitamin is very hard to prove because that requires studies that span a human lifespan.
Oh, of course. Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
But there are preliminary studies to show that. And one study is an analysis done by Barry Hallowell's lab from National University of Singapore. Their lab, I would say, is one of the leading labs in terms of ergothioneine research.
Right.
And they analyze basically all the association studies that would link plasma or serum levels of ergothioneine with age-related conditions. And they found a certain threshold to meet in terms of the plasma or serum levels of ergothioneine to deem whether a person might be healthy or unhealthy. And so if you have lower levels of ergothioneine below what their studies showed, 900 nanomolar or less than 1 micromolar of ergothioneine, that would highly suggest that you're more at risk for neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's, or these age-related diseases versus above this level. So
that's
with
an interesting
aging,
correlation.
It's an interesting correlation, and they've determined a level, which is very important because there's no RDI, there's no recommended dietary
RDI
intake.
stands for
recommended dietary intake, which is established for essential vitamins. We don't know the target to hit.
I see.
In terms of, for Americans, we're not getting enough mushrooms or ergothioneine in our
what
diet.
level actually counts as
What
deficient?
level? Exactly. We don't have that information, and we're just starting to get scientific data to achieve that information, because this is very important.
Yeah.
It is very important to know, not only focusing on the acute syndromes, but look at Healthspan. And ergothioneine is one nutrient candidate for Healthspan. So their data is very important, because now we know a number to achieve for dietary supplementation or increasing our diet for, to promote Healthspan.
Right. That's interesting. So, okay. Switching gears just a little bit, I understand Blue California sells ergothioneine as a supplement. It has a branded name.
ErgoActive Ergothioneine.
Right. Is it useful to not only sell it as supplements, but perhaps as like a food fortification, like vitamin D in milk, for instance?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yes. Blue California has been commercializing ergothioneine for quite a while. We've achieved FDA no objections to our safety dossier, generally regarded as safe dossier.
Otherwise known as US FDA GRAS, right?
FDA GRAS since 2019. And our ingredient has been on the marketplace for quite a number of years. So we've been working on this ingredient in terms of safety, in terms of scientific substantiation, in terms of looking at the different applications of ergothioneine for quite a number of time.
Right.
And absolutely, it could be used to fortify or enrich foods, or could be used as a dietary supplement. For us, as long as people are, getting adequate levels of ergothioneine in their diet to improve Healthspan, that's what matters to us. So for brands who are interested in Healthspan innovations, who are interested in adopting ergothioneine in their innovation, it almost doesn't matter whether they want to put it in a nutritional shake or a protein bar or in a dietary capsule. As long as they're educating the public, their target audience, hey, this is a very unique and interesting nutrient that is important for cognitive health and Healthspan. So the formats almost doesn't matter. It's almost like, okay, we got to know, what is good for our consumers. What do they want to take?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of differentiators for Blue California's ergothioneine. And I guess maybe one of the most important ones, as you said, is a lot of the science that your company is generating around it. I understand you've actually recently completed a study around.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that? What you did there and what the outcomes were?
Yes. So we recently completed, and right now it's under peer review, the first interventional trial to look at ergothioneine supplementation for cognitive health in healthy human subjects, but with subjective memory complaints.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I say healthy human subjects because we are targeting ergothioneine as a dietary supplement, and due to restrictions of not wanting ergothioneine to be a drug, which means ergothioneine does not treat, prevent a disease, but it supports a function.
Right.
We have to look at healthy human subjects.
And why subjective memory? Why that metric?
Because we're looking at cognitive health and we're looking at memory. So memory is one of our endpoints. So we want to look at people who are older who have subjective memory. They are not diagnosed with a memory disorder.
But they're self-reporting that they feel like their memory is starting to slip, something like that.
So that still categorises them as healthy human
Is that
subjects.
Understood as being sort of a precursor state to like neurodegenerative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So subjective memory, even though it's based on surveys, even though it's based on, I personally think I'm just having memory issues. I mean, I'm losing my keys all the time.
Right.
It is thought to be a precursor for a more serious condition like
Alzheimer's or something like that.
Mild cognitive decline.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense that people would be able to kind of feel when they're starting to slip, right?
And there are surveys.
Yeah. And
we go through a screening process.
Okay. So what were the outcomes?
Yeah. So the patients were given, it was a 3-arm study. So they were given placebo, 10 milligrams of ergothioneine per day, or 25 milligrams a day. And we looked at a 4-month trial. And we looked at objective functions of cognitive function, including composite memory, et cetera, executive function, reaction time. And we also looked at some secondary endpoints that were more exploratory. We looked at subjective memory. We looked at sleep, because sleep is very important for cognitive function as well. And there was a previous small clinical study that looked at sleep, and there was some positive outcomes in terms of linking ergothioneine supplementation to better sleep quality. So we looked at sleep. And we looked at some biochemistry markers as well, including telomere length. So Blue California, we found that ergothioneine positively influenced telomere length. Telomere length is a hallmark of aging.
Right.
And so we found in a previous preclinical study in human cells that ergothioneine was able to prevent telomeres from shortening under oxidative stress.
Right. Shorter telomeres correlates to shorter lifespan.
Short, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
So we wanted to look at that in a human population as well. And we found that over the course of our 4-month study, that ergothioneine was able to increase from baseline memory, as well as other indicators of cognitive function, and overall increase, compared to placebo, subjective memory, as well as sleep initiation. So the ability for people to fall asleep, which is very important for older people, compared to placebo. And we actually, surprisingly, we wanted to see an effect in telomere length, but it's only a 4-month study. So it's very short.
Right.
But we saw a signal for ergothioneine supplementation.
And it was statistically significant.
Compared to baseline.
Great. Okay. All right.
In terms of being able to increase telomere length compared to placebo.
Well, I do hope that there are going to be many more studies along these lines that people will be conducting, and maybe even some of these longer term ones. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll find that magic threshold number that actually defines a deficiency state one day.
That is the field of ergothioneine right now.
Right.
So, ergothioneine has been known in the research world for quite a number of time, but it's only in the past 5 or 10 years that research has gotten very exciting. I mean, all the previous research were all foundational and groundbreaking, but now, we have established a clear link between low ergothioneine levels and risk for age-related conditions, right? We're now looking at clinical trials. So right now, we are looking at just a few clinical trials. There's us. There is the one that Blue California has funded, and our collaborators at CSIRO Australia has executed very nicely. And there is a clinical trial looking at the link between ergothioneine and sleep quality. And there is also, I have to mention, another clinical trial looking at ergothioneine supplementation for 1 year. And this was a completely independent clinical trial from our company, which is great. It's very important to have independent clinical trials to establish the same, support the same, provide the same evidence. And they found that 1 year of ergothioneine supplementation, the study was conducted by the Hallowell Group from Singapore and US. And they found that ergothioneine supplementation for 1 year in older adults diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. So that is a step up.
Yeah, that's not subjective memory. That's an actual external diagnosis.
Yes.
Right.
Ergothioneine was able to improve a domain of learning and prevent an increase of a neurodegenerative marker called neurofilament light chain.
Okay.
That is a marker for neurodegeneration, in which the placebo group actually saw an increase over this 1 year time.
And how broad is that marker? Is that predictive for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and maybe others, or is it limited?
Yeah, neurodegeneration in general.
I see. That's really interesting.
And so ergothioneine was able to prevent that.
Right.
So it is very interesting right now to have clinical trials showing that, okay, ergothioneine supplementation, a very simple antioxidant,
has very real effects.
Real effects in both a diagnosed disease state, mild cognitive impairment, and also in healthy subjects too, with subjective memory complaints.
Right.
So now we're looking at, now the field is going, okay, we got to look at different populations. We got to look at different timeframes. And I would say even beyond cognitive health, we've been focused on cognitive health because of the association studies. But now the field has expanded to all sorts of different applications because of ergothioneine getting in different cells. There's kidney benefits. There's even hearing loss benefits. It gets into mitochondria recently. the group from Singapore demonstrated that ergothioneine definitively gets in mitochondria. And there's also 2 other groups independently in that the papers were published in Cell Metabolism, which is, high impact.
Good journal. Yeah.
Good journal.
Yep.
That ergothioneine gets into the mitochondria and mediates positive performance effects, physical performance, and bioenergetics. So now we're really expanding from a focus of cognitive health to general healthy aging.
That's cool.
So that's where we're focused on. It's like, okay, this is a really exciting time for ergothioneine and scientific development, which Blue California is working on in collaboration with all these other amazing institutions.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's good to hear that more and more interventional studies are coming out. I hope there's more of that. I want to shift gears here before we start to wrap up and zoom out a little bit and just talk about, the longevity and the aging field in general a little bit. So my understanding is that there's basically 3 buckets of philosophies on aging here, and they're characterized by, I guess, 3 different terms. One I've heard is, of course, healthy aging, right? And then there's also one called anti-aging. And then I've also heard reverse aging, right? Could you maybe just briefly explain what you think the major differences and definitions of those 3 terms are, and maybe let me know where you fall in that spectrum of thought? What's the right way to think about aging?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you mentioned healthy aging, anti-aging, and reverse aging.
Yeah.
Yes, there are different buckets of thought. And when I listen to your question, I'm just thinking about the broad spectrum of, there's a corollary is longevity doctors versus biohackers.
Okay.
There's just like a broad spectrum of thought on how we approach aging.
Yes.
The field of aging.
Respect to the bravery of biohackers. But yes, please continue. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I respect all spectrums, I will say. The individual groups may not, but I believe we're all in the same boat in terms of our common mission to improve human health span and lifespan. Maybe in the past, the conversation was more about lifespan, increasing the number of years. Now we're understanding and more prioritizing, okay, we want to increase human health. And so, I'm fine with the spectrum. Healthy aging is more of, okay, regardless of a person's life, you want to increase health.
Yeah.
Anti-aging, I see it as more of a scientific communication word. In the past, I guess anti-aging is more of a word to say, okay, I want to look as young as possible,
Right.
I want to look like I'm 25 with 30 years of experience.
Sure, of course, yeah.
I want to, do things to myself to look and feel young. But now, we're embracing healthy aging because I think we're all collectively realizing it's okay to age. Mm-hmm. It's okay to look older, if you will, and feel older because, it's wise. It's part of life. We collected a lot of experiences. And so now the term anti-aging has almost rebranded itself to healthy aging.
Oh, I see.
So it's almost the same bucket, but people within those camps are in the same mission. The same mission is to feel as best as possible, regardless of your age.
Right.
Reverse aging is awesome. I do follow that. Mm-hmm. Even as
turning back the clock.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I actually love it because maybe in the past it used to be fringy or more sci-fi.
Right.
But we're finding, we're pushing it towards there.
There's this metric they call it biological age, right? And the people
it's no longer sci-fi.
Right.
It's like, okay, we could actually measure our biological age from epigenetics, looking at all these markers in the DNA.
Yeah.
I track that. I get biomarkers done. I look at my fitness age. I'm proudly saying I'm 5 to 10 years younger than my biological age. On my metrics. It's all exploratory.
Yeah.
And I do look at that. And I do love there's I would say two different camps. One is more, we want to wait until the scientific evidence, clinical trials, and, dozens of clinical trials to make a conclusion of, okay, this is anti-aging, healthy aging, et cetera. There's the other camp of okay, there could be emerging evidence, this emerging evidence is valid. I want to test on myself. I want to promote it. I want to push the field. And I think both spectrums is very important. You have one grounded in evidence, which I do. It's very important to be grounded in evidence. We want to make sure these therapies work as they claim. And we want to make sure that the general public understands, okay, the outcomes of a clinical trial is restricted to, a population, an indication, and, it may not be generalizable to everyone.
Right.
That's important for messaging because messaging can be very chaotic. I think that's where the rifts come in. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, on one side, you have the other side of the spectrum just promoting themselves, right? Sure. And then the general public is like, okay, this is dogma. This is what I need to do. Yeah. That is very dangerous.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we need to have evidence. The grounded effect.
Yeah.
But the other side is very exciting.
Yeah.
They're pushing the boundaries. They're pushing the envelope. And the science follows too.
Sure.
So I'm completely in the middle.
Okay. So every time I have this conversation, it tends to get a little philosophical, especially when we talk about reverse aging. So I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a moment here. Yeah. So the natural question that comes from that is, should we live forever, right? I mean, from the perspective of evolution, our fitness as a species, it's measured by our ability to reproduce. And then after we've, raised our progeny successfully, I think there's some strong arguments that says that, we aren't really required to be around anymore. And maybe we're not so much a benefit to humanity after that point.
That's sad.
I mean, that's the way the hardcore biologist would sound, right? Oh. But at the risk of sounding like a nihilist, what might you say to people that don't think it's a good idea to keep increasing our lifespan?
I will say to those, you do you.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to have a healthy lifespan, no matter who you are. And as I said, I was playing devil's advocate, so I don't necessarily feel this way.
Yes. No, I understand. I believe in, a personal choice. Like, I'm healthy.
Yeah. But I would
like to educate people on the reasons why I live my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But not really push for it, right?
Right.
Your question, I see it as that. It's like, okay, there's people who want to invest their time, their money into lifespan, health span extension. And there's people who might think, okay, we should just enjoy life, just live the years that we're granted and, whatever happens.
Right.
Which is fine. But I will, okay, so to provide an answer to your question, there is definitely great value beyond raising our kids to have their kids.
Sure.
And then, it's done.
As I said before, I want to be a present grandparent, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
And it's even beyond that, regardless of kids, we are parents, but there's plenty of people out there that are not parents. What's the value of that? It's wisdom. It's wisdom. Over, the course of a lifespan, we see all sorts of historical events. We see economic times. We see political changes. And anyone who is an expert in those fields will know that those events are cyclic.
Yeah.
There's nothing, this sounds, pessimistic, but there's nothing new. There's just new scenarios that happen in a different time of life.
Sure.
But business cases, political cases, financial
cases.
History repeats itself.
Yeah.
And so just imagine, in those sci-fi videos, you always have the ancient sage, the tree of life, right?
Yes.
In which the community goes to ask the secrets of life because they're older.
Yes.
To have seen it happen.
Yes.
That's where the value comes from. So as a great grandparent, as a parent, you see multiple generations and you have that wisdom. Just imagine if you extend life for another generation and you're healthy.
I think ergothioneine can help us all be the ancient sages that we would like to be. So this was a wonderful discussion with you, Linda. Wishing you and Blue California much success. I would like to tell our audience that you can learn more about Blue California by visiting their website at bluecal-ingredients.com. bluecal-ingredients.com. Thanks again.
Thanks for this interesting conversation.
If you enjoyed this episode and would like to learn more, visit our website at forgingbio.com, where you can listen to every episode and connect with our guests. Together, we're forging the future of biotechnology.